Hey guys, welcome back to Crime Unwined, the podcast where we pour a glass, unpack true crime, and leave you questioning everything that you knew. I'm Aixa.
And I'm Denise. And tonight we're taking a case so chilly, it literally changed the way that we lived. 7 people in Chicago died after taking extra strength Tylenol. And to this day, the killer has never been brought to justice.
We're talking about the Tylenol Murders, a case that has sent shockwaves across America, triggered mass panic, and led to safety changes that affect us every single day, like tamper-proof seals on bottles of medicine.
Yep. Yep. And while there's one prime suspect, this story isn't just like that simple.
Right.
There were ignored warnings, there were missed clues, a man who loved playing games with investigators, but still managed to die free.
Yep, and listen, this case isn't just history. As recently as 2022, prosecutors were this close to filing charges, but before they could, the prime suspect died, taking the truth to the grave with him.
Wow. So, pour yourself a big glass because this story, it is a wild ride. And by the end, I guarantee you'll never look at over-the-counter medicine quite the same again.
All right. So, Denise, what are we drinking today?
So, yesterday, I stumbled upon this little gem that's right up the street from us, located in Helen, Pennsylvania, Lavender Acres Winery. It's tucked away in the countryside. This vineyard is very, very beautiful. I went wine tasting, and the flavors, girl. I mean, the flavors, at least the ones that because I wanted to try all of them, to be honest, but, we can't drive back that way in those conditions. So, the ones that we tasted, they were all very good, all very well. And the vibe is very cozy. There's cabanas. Within the cabanas, there's like these little fireplaces or these little fire pits that you can turn on. There's games. They even had like trivia nights, ladies' nights. So guarantee, you're gonna want to visit this place.
Sounds like a vibe.
Yep. So tonight, what we have, it's called Chillax. It's actually a red wine from their collection. So I'm excited to try.
All right. So the bottle says that it's a mix of their Concord and Niagara blends. Let's try it.
Cheers.
I'm excited. Smells good.
That is good. That is good. And I like the sweet, but that's super crisp. Right. It's not really, really sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay, Lavender Acres Winery, I see you. All right, so grab your glasses, settle in, because here's the story of the Tylenol Murders.
All right. So let's take it back. September 29th, 1982, in Chicago suburbs. It's a regular weekday, and nobody has any clue that by the end of the day, people will be dying from something as innocent as a bottle of Tylenol.
Crazy. So the first victim, which is sad, all the victims were sad, but this young lady, 12-year-old Mary Kellerman, she's from the Elk Grove village, who woke up that morning with a sore throat, something that all of us have experienced, is at least once in our lifetime, right?
Absolutely. And like any parent would, her dad gives her extra strength Tylenol capsule. Within minutes, Mary collapses. Her father hears a loud thud and finds her unconscious on the bathroom floor.
Can you imagine? 1 second, your kid has a cold or sore throat, and then next you're rushing her to the emergency room, and doctors are baffled.
And by 9:56 a.m., Mary Kellerman is pronounced dead, and no one knows why.
Yep. And a detail that was super strange to me, because the first person to suspect cyanide, it wasn't a doctor, it was a nurse.
Yes, and her name was Helen Jensen, and she was a public health nurse in Arlington Heights. Now, when 3 members of the Janus family, and we'll talk about them here in a bit, started dying mysteriously, she was the first to say, "This isn't random. Something is poisoning these people."
And when she visited Adam Janus's house, the second victim, she noticed something strange. The Tylenol bottle was open on the kitchen counter. I mean, that's not strange, but that's what she noticed.
Yes, that was the first thing she saw. And here's what's wild, though. She immediately suspected that the pills were their common factor. But guess what? No one believed her.
Isn't it always that way, though? You know, the first person to speak up, a woman, and it gets dismissed.
And while they ignored Jensen, the body count was rising. So they ignored her, but people kept dying.
Exactly. So let's talk about the Janus family, because what happened to them is beyond devastating.
It is. So it starts with Adam Janus, 27-year-old postal worker who takes Tylenol for a mild headache after running some errands. Now, within minutes, he collapses. And by 3:15 p.m., he's dead. 27.
Insane. But it doesn't stop there, though. It doesn't stop there. Later that day, as his family, they gather to grieve, his younger brother Stanley complains of a headache.
So naturally, he takes 2 Tylenol capsules also from the same bottle that killed Adam. Now, his wife Terry, who was 19, she takes some Tylenol too.
And both of them collapse, and by the next day, they are both dead.
So 3 members of the same family all gone because of 1 bottle of Tylenol.
And then while this family is being completely wiped out, the authorities are still dragging their feet until Dr. Kim gets involved.
Right. So that's where Dr. Thomas Kim steps in. He's working in the ICU when the Janus family members start showing up. He knows something obviously isn't right.
Yeah. And then while others were scratching their heads, baffled, Dr. Kim, with Janus's urging, orders toxicology tests for cyanide.
And guess what? He was right. Each victim had lethal levels of cyanide in their system, enough to kill hundreds of people.
And then that's when the panic officially begins.
So by October 1st, 1982, the terrifying truth is out. The Tylenol capsules are poisoned. 7 people are dead, and no one knows how many bottles could be tainted.
And then let's be clear, this wasn't just a Chicago problem anymore. I mean, people across the country were freaking out, and for good reason. This is something very popular. Tylenol was probably in every home, so anyone could have done this.
Imagine hearing on the news that something you trust, right? Something you take for a simple headache, something almost everyone uses, could kill you. Yep. So people started throwing away every bottle of Tylenol they had.
Yep. And the numbers were wild. I mean, Johnson & Johnson, who makes Tylenol, they did order a nationwide recall of 31 million bottles, which cost them over $100 million. And remember, this is 1982, so money of that caliber, it was insane.
That's a lot.
That was insane, yeah.
Absolutely. And while Johnson & Johnson were pulling products, the FDA was racing to figure out how many tainted bottles were still out there. So they tested millions of capsules, and here's the creepy part. No cyanide was found in any other location outside of Chicago's suburbs.
That's crazy. So that means that somebody local was doing this.
Yeah, right. And investigators quickly realized that this wasn't a factory problem. Somebody was actually tampering with the bottles after they were on store shelves.
And think about how risky that is, though. I mean, they had to buy the bottles.
Right.
Okay. Carefully open them, remove the medicine, replace it with the cyanide powder, reseal the bottle without leaving any traces, and then return them to random stores. That is a lot.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot.
It's terrifying, though, because this was random and public. So there was no pattern of who was targeted. That's what made people feel so vulnerable. It could happen to anybody.
Absolutely. And then while the public was panicking, the FBI was narrowing in on their first major suspect. And enter check, James William Lewis.
All right, so let's talk about James William Lewis, because this guy, he's like something out of a crime novel, but real.
Exactly, and very dangerous.
Right. So a few weeks after the murders, Johnson & Johnson receives an anonymous letter. And this letter, it was a ransom demand.
And then, let me tell you what it said. It says, if you want to stop the killings, you must pay me $1 million.
And here's the weird part, though. This letter isn't sloppy, right? It's carefully worded, it's calm, and written by someone who knows what they're doing.
Yep. So the FBI traces the letter back to James William Lewis, who is living in New York City at the time. And once they dig into his background, it gets wild.
Yes, so Lewis had already been in trouble with the law.
Mhm.
In 1978, he was charged with credit card fraud. But while he was out on bail, he disappeared.
Yep. And then get this, he's linked to a murder. His fingerprints were found on belongings of a dismembered man named Raymond West, but somehow he's never charged with the murder, just fraud.
Suspect, James Lewis.
A bizarre 1978 murder case.
Victim, Raymond West.
His legs cut off, his body stuffed in a plastic bag.
From Detective Dave Barton.
My involvement in the Raymond West case started when a body was found in the attic of a house. A game hoist was used to haul the body up into the attic.
Do you remember anything about the hoist?
No. What I remember are the ropes. I know my way around knots. I was in the Navy and I was a sailor, and I could tell that this was not a run-of-the-mill knot. And I opened up those bags of rope that included the slip knots that tied Raymond West's legs and torso up.
Do you remember that smell now?
Oh, yeah. I'll never forget it.
That case had been thrown out for insufficient medical evidence and improper police procedures.
Just another one of the
Say it.
ups that plague this case.
Crazy. It's infuriating that he's so mad. They have evidence, and he should have been behind bars already. Like,
Absolutely.
and now he's taunting law enforcement
Yep.
with the ransom letter tied to these Tylenol murders.
Yes, ma'am. And then when they finally do arrest Lewis, he gives them the most ridiculous excuse ever.
Fellow.
He claims that he wrote the ransom letters to help the investigation. He's like, I wasn't serious. I just wanted to give police a theory to work with. Okay.
I what? So writing a letter saying, pay me $1 million or people die, that's what being a helpful citizen.
I guess. But the FBI wasn't buying it either. But here's the problem. There was no physical evidence connecting Lewis to the actual tampering of the Tylenol bottles.
So instead of murder charges, in 1983, he was convicted of extortion. Now, he did get 13 years in federal prison.
Yeah. And while Lewis was in prison, he becomes obsessed with this Tylenol case. He writes letters, proposes theories, and even offers to help investigators create a profile for the killer. So this man was literally obsessed with this case.
That's classic narcissist.
Oh, absolutely.
Behavior. Like,
Absolutely.
He enjoyed keeping himself in the spotlight.
Yes, ma'am. And then after 12 years, he is released. But here's what's wild. He never stays quiet. In fact, the following years, he kept talking about the case over and over.
He even published a 25-page book outlining how he thinks the killer did it, as if he was the expert.
Which, let me tell you, that's a power move, because he's basically taunting and daring the FBI, like, come get me.
I dare ya. Fast forward to 2022, and the case suddenly heats up again.
That year, prosecutors say that they have new evidence connecting Lewis to the murders, and for the first time, it looks like they're ready to charge him.
Yes, but before they can, he dies.
Yep. On July 9th, 2023, at the age of 76, Lewis is found dead in his home, taking whatever secrets he had with him.
And here's where things get weird. So, because not everyone thinks that Lewis acted alone.
Right.
Some investigators think that there may have been an accomplice or even a copycat.
There was even a theory about a disgruntled Johnson & Johnson employee.
Right.
But nothing concrete never really came out of it.
Right. So while there is circumstantial evidence against Lewis, no one's ever proven how the Tylenol bottles were tampered with or why.
Right. Right. So here we are, over 40 years later, and the Tylenol murders are still officially unsolved.
Right. But that case changed everything.
It did.
Every tamper-proof seal that you see today, that's because of this case.
Exactly. Which was probably the best idea that they've ever
Absolutely.
come up with.
I mean, based off of some of the documentaries that I was watching, there were, at that time, some tamper-proof bottles already. So the idea was already in place.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Luckily for Johnson and Johnson, they were able to rebound and come back from that.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of money. A lot of money.
A lot of money.
And people still use Tylenol today. I mean,
Yep.
that's one of probably the biggest.
Yeah, and then you still have the capsules where they have the powder in it, but a lot of it formed with solid pills.
Yep.
So that's probably also one of the reasons that Tylenol went on that route. I don't know if that was, but
And James William Lewis, he definitely loved that spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
He
Oh,
did
yeah.
interviews and shows and the books he wrote.
Yeah.
And I saw some of he even drew diagrams of how he believed these capsules were done. I mean,
from what I read in a bunch of different places, you were swindling old people out of their money. You were a con man. You're not an angel. So let's not about this. You're no angel. You have a criminal past. You've been a criminal. I'm not going to say you're a career criminal, but you've been a criminal. And that's just let's call a spade a spade.
I've never been swindling anybody out of money in my life.
Okay. Well,
But with all the publicity that
you went to jail for mail fraud.
You can have all sorts.
Did you not go to jail for mail fraud?
In that case, I did because of all the publicity they could have.
All right. So everything that got thrown on you. So all right. So you're going to
I couldn't defend myself with all the Tylenol publicity.
You were wanted for mail fraud before the Tylenol. You were wanted. That's why you left.
That's right. I was.
So you left Kansas City. You were the prime suspect in a grisly murder.
60 people stood up on the jury panel. They asked them how many knew me without ever being introduced. All but 3 raised a hand.
You were guilty of mail fraud. You were found guilty of mail fraud, but you're saying that you weren't guilty.
By a jury that all knew me and were exposed to the publicity, yes.
You also wrote a letter of extortion, and you wrote a letter threatening to assassinate the president.
No, I never threatened to assassinate the president.
This is a picture you drew the FBI. This is the picture you drew to show them how someone might put cyanide into in a capsule of Tylenol. There's also a weird case that happened in 1978 with Raymond West, who was your former boss.
He was not my former boss.
He wasn't? You didn't work for him?
No.
You weren't his accountant. You were his accountant,
Right.
correct? Sorry about that. I can get things wrong, but I got enough of it right. Who ended up dead in his attic. And you were the prime suspect as the guy who did that, who killed him, who murdered him.
Well, first of all, Benita Peterson, the medical examiner, testified in court that there was no cause of death. Secondly,
no cause of death.
For 2 weeks, he was under the lock and key.
So there was no homicide, she said? There was no homicide.
There was no homicide.
But the guy was dismembered and stuffed in a plastic bag in his attic. How does somebody dismember themselves and stuff themselves in a plastic bag? You got come on. I mean, they might have not found a cause of death.
Why don't you ask the police that went
If
in
you
and out of
found a
that
dead
house for
body
2
in a
weeks.
plastic bag, dismembered, arms cut off, wouldn't you think there was a homicide? Wouldn't anybody reasonable think there was a homicide? Now, you can say the coroner said I couldn't prove what killed him.
Well, you just named somebody that does it all the time. You go to pathology labs and you see bodies that are chopped up inside there.
So it's not...
Now, you're going to accuse a pathologist of being a homicidal maniac?
If you think about it, the way that the capsules were very meticulously done, and the way that his ransom letters were meticulously done and with calm, and you needed a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Patience, I guess. To do something like this, it points to him. I don't know his character, the way that he moved in this case. I don't know. It's just,
but I think it's because he was a serial criminal. He's gotten away with so many things from what I've read and from what I've watched. All these crimes that he committed, even as far as murder. I think he did that because there was enough evidence to convict him for dismembering that man.
Absolutely.
Having gotten away with so many things for so long, it made him super cocky.
Maybe it was the thrill of not getting caught.
Absolutely. He absolutely believed and said he was smarter than, most people. And
Oh,
I mean, and he
God.
might have been. He died with these secrets, and no one will ever really know.
No. No. So you guys have to let us know, what do you think? Did James William Lewis do it, or is there another killer still out there?
So let us know. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and always check that safety seal.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.